Namaste, Pranam, Gita Dhyana. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Krathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatva Manusandadhami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshinim. O Bhagavad Gita, with which Lord Narayana himself gave enlightenment to Partha, the ancient sage Vyasa included it in the Mahabharata. O Goddess, showerer of the nectar-like knowledge of non-dualism contained in your 18 chapters, O my affectionate mother, the destroyer of rebirth, I meditate upon thee. Krishna Vandana. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Son of Vasudeva, the slayer of Kansa and Chanur, extreme delight for Mother Devaki, O Lord Krishna, the supreme teacher of the universe, my salutations to you. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the 14th Adhyaya of Traya Vibhag Yoga, and Sri Krishna has beautifully explained to us the characteristics of each of these three gunas, the sattva, rajas and tamas, what they contribute to each of the three gunas, like sattva to purity, rajas to action, and tamas to delusion and ignorance and andhakar. And Sri Krishna also told us what happens to the indweller, to the Deha Bhrat, when certain guna is predominant at the time of death. And Sri Krishna told us that when sattva is predominant at the time of death, the jivatman, it gets the next birth, which is leading to purity. Because the journey is from purity, lower purity to higher purity. The journey is from lower knowledge to higher knowledge. It is all from knowledge to knowledge. So this is what Sri Krishna told. With sattva being dominant, the jivatman is going to get the future birth, which is also going to produce a lot of knowledge, lot of bliss, lot of devotion, all those positive traits. What happens when the rajas is dominant? Then one activity to hordes of other activities, because rajas is associated with karma, with action. So when rajas is dominant at the time of death, the jivatman is bound to get the birth where he or she has to slog and slog and slog. It is from lesser work to more work. But there again, the ultimate objective for the jivatman is to escape from this cycle. From inferior works to superior works, maybe. And that is how slowly a turn will take place where the sattva dominates the rajas and tamas in that birth. Although the birth is depending upon, with rajas dominant, it is going to be the action-oriented next birth. And what happens with the tamas? Tamas, unfortunately, again, it is from darkness to darkness. Now, can it be from lesser darkness to more darkness? Can it be from lesser ignorance to more ignorance? Can it be from lesser delusion to more delusion? That the next birth will determine how the next being, next body that the jivatman is going to take birth in, how that is going to behave. So it might happen that that body, although it is conducive for ignorance and darkness and delusion, maybe there is a spark of knowledge somewhere, suddenly sparks. Because remember, the gunas, they don't travel alone in isolation. They are always tied up together with each other. They come in the triplets of sattva, rajas, tamas. So although it is a tamas dominant, there is an opportunity for sattva to sparkle its brilliance sometime or the other. And then it will overpower the rajas and tamas. So this is how the journey continues from one birth to another birth, maybe millions and millions and billions of births. Poor Jivatma has to undergo till the final liberation, till finally the sattva is so dominant that there is escape from this cycle of births and deaths. So that is as far as the birth, the death and birth is concerned, when the certain quality, certain guna is in the ascendance, is uppermost at the time of uppermost in the mind at the time of death. Now, so tamasic person, when in the next birth, the tamasic person ought to endeavor to become rajasic. A rajasic person ought to endeavor to become sattvic, and a sattvic person ought to endeavor to escape the cycle of birth and death. So this is how the gunas, they determine our future courses of births. Now, how the gunas, how they are associated in our performing different types of actions. So Sri Krishna is now going to tell that particular, it is also a very enlightening knowledge for that matter, how each guna determines the fruits of actions that we are performing. Although Sri Krishna has told us that whenever you are doing any action, never focus on the fruits of action. But it so happens that whenever we are doing any activity with a guna in predominance, that activity on its own, whether we like it or not, we are not aiming to get the fruit of the action. Our focus is not fruit of action, but each and every action certainly gets its own fruit, whether we like it or not. Each and every action of ours, our focus may not be on the fruit, but inherently each and every action has to get its fruit, has to get its phalam. So now Sri Krishna is telling us about the fruits that these three gunas derive while performing the actions. Karmaṇaḥ sukṛtasyāhuḥ sāttvikaṃ nirmalaṃ phalam rajasastu phalam duḥkhamajñānaṃ tamasaḥ phalam. What happens when we perform actions when the sattva is in dominance? With all that sattvik, the blissful, the purest of the pure attitudes, when we start performing works, the actions that we perform, karmaṇaḥ sukṛtasyāhuḥ, they say that the good works that are done when the sāttvika sāttvikaṃ nirmalaṃ phalam, when the sattvika is in predominance, the fruit of those good actions is always nirmalaṃ. The person will always get the purest of the pure fruits, untainted, the sparkling, enlightening, crystal clear fruits. No taint of any blemish, no taint of any bad mark, no taint of any kind of evilness attached to it. The purest of the pure, nirmalaṃ phalam. This is what happens when one starts doing activities with sattvik in the dominant condition. Because this will always be only the good works, the beneficial works, and sukṛta. Those works which are going to fetch the good results only. Rajasastu phalam duḥkham. But what is the fruit of action for the rajas dominant person? When the rajas is in dominance and we perform some actions, the fruit of action is duḥkham. It is pain, it is grief, it is sorrow. Because that work with rajas dominant is done with the certain intention. That work is always done with focus on the fruit of action. And when we expect something, we always get something in return in the pairs of opposites. We expect pleasure to come to us, but pain comes. We expect joy to come to us, but what comes to us is misery. We expect good and nice things to come to us, but what comes to us is unhappiness. So this is what Sri Krishna says, that when an action is done with rajas in command, the fruit of that action is always pain and grief and sorrow and unhappiness. And what is the fruit of action when tamas is in dominance? Tamas as it is, it has no purity attached to it. Tamas also doesn't have any pairs of opposites attached to it. Tamas is nothing but darkness. Tamas is nothing but ignorance. Tamas is nothing but delusion. And ajnanam is the fruit of action when tamas is dominant. So this is how our actions also determine what we are going to get. It is not only what is dominant at the time of death that determines what we are going to get next. Even in this birth, whatever actions we perform, whichever guna is prominent while performing those actions, we get the fruits of actions accordingly. With the sattva dominant, we get nothing but the nirmalaṃ phalam. With the purest of the pure fruits. With the rajas dominant, we get duḥkham. We expect pleasure, but we get pain. We expect joy, we get sorrow. We expect happiness, we receive unhappiness, because they come attached to each other. And when we are doing nothing in that mode of tamas, it is all ajnanam, because we don't do anything as such. We don't do anything as such when the tamas is in its ascendance, when the tamas is predominant. So what we get in turn is just the ajnanam. It is ignorance, it is delusion, it is darkness again. So we remain in the darkness, we are in the darkness, we remain in the darkness. There is no light of hope that comes when tamas is in dominance. The fruit of good action, they say, is sattvik and pure. Verily, the fruit of rajas is pain, and ignorance is the fruit of tamas. Tamas engulfs man either in inertia or in wicked deeds which prevent him from making upward progress. Most of the time, the tamasic person will not do anything, and if at all anything is to be done, it is always be some wicked, some evil thing that the tamasic person will do. And accordingly, the result of those actions will be conducive, will be the same in proportion, in accordance with what has been done. You do evil, you get evil. You do nothing, you get nothing. You do wretched things, you get wretched things back to you. So that is what happens with the tamas when engulfs a person. Rajas is one instrument to save man from stagnation and lead him to prosperity. Now rajas is actually an opportunity to move forward. In rajas also, but the problem is, in rajas, we may do good, we may not do that good. We may not do evil for that matter, fine. We may not do wretched things, but we may do good, we get good. But we may not do that good, we don't get that good back. It drives him into incessant action, but the nature of karma is to bring misery in its train. We do, but always when a rajasic person works, there is an element of attachment to the fruit which is attached to that work. And the moment that attachment to fruit is there, the fruit that comes always comes with the pairs of opposites. So, Sri Krishna has clearly told that the fruit of action for a rajasic is nothing but pain. And this misery is no ill luck. It has a great purpose to serve. Nothing else equals misery for inducing man to soar high. The more and more misery comes, the expectation, the urge for getting enlightened increases. The more and more we fall down, our urge to go up and up, it increases. That is what happens with the rajasic attitude. More and more misery, more and more pain. It is kind of a stick hitting a person. You have got bad, now you have to get good. And therefore, in connection with this misery and pain and sorrow, Holy Mother Sri Sarda Devi has said actually that misery actually is a gift of God. It teaches a man forbearance. The more and more a person suffers out of this misery and pain and the duḥkham, that also teaches a person how to forbear. That also teaches a person how to go beyond that pain. And if one has to go beyond that plane, one understands that I have to go beyond pleasure also, because it is not that I can go beyond pain alone. I have to go cross both the pain and pleasure. And the moment this urge of crossing over the pairs of opposites sparks in a person, that sparkling, that is a start point of the illumination, that is the start point of the enlightenment. So in a way, for Rajasic, to get that pain is also in turn going to result in a good, going to result to purity, going to result in blissfulness. But what happens to the tamas? That only God can save. Only God can save through His grace, through His mercy. That at some point of time, this tamas gets subdued by the sattva and the rajas. And then comes the hope for liberation, the hope for getting out of these clutches of birth and death. So this is the 16th shloka that Sri Krishna taught us, that when we do any work, how our course of our action, the guna which is predominant at the time of performing any action, how that guna determines the fruit of action that we are going to get. So that was the 16th shloka of the Gunatraya Vibhag Yoga. And Sri Krishna has unfolded another important aspect of the three gunas associated with our living in this body, with the Jivatman living in this body, how that is going to lead to the future fruits of actions also. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Sri Ramakrishna. Jai Thakur. Jai Ma. Jai Swamiji.